I'm Cllr Claire Holland, leader of the London Borough of Lambeth and chair of London Councils. Lambeth is open for business and London boroughs are open for business.
What would be the one characteristic that you would say has motivated you throughout your career in politics?
My message to the real estate and development community is I'm Cllr Claire Holland, leader of the London Borough of Lambeth and chair of London Councils.
Welcome.
Welcome to the show, Councillor Holland. First question, this is a special UKREiiF edition of the podcast, it's worth saying. We're very happy to have you with us. So what would be the one characteristic that you would say has motivated you throughout your career in politics?
I would say it's the thirst for social justice. I was brought up in a Labour household, and both my parents came from impoverished backgrounds and talked about the impacts of poverty on them and their families and the wider communities. And it, I think, grew in all of us, all my siblings and myself, a notion of public service and tackling inequalities wherever we see them. I went into a career as a legal aid children's lawyer because my mum said that I put people in the witness box when I argue. But it was, I think that was all part of that understanding social justice is the bedrock for all that we do. And I think from that, it naturally, and because of my political background with my parents, led me into becoming a councillor and really carrying that through in all the work that we do now in Lambeth.
Amazing. And so you're, as well as leader of Lambeth Council, as you mentioned, you're chair of the London Council. So on a day-to-day, what do those two roles involve and how do you kind of balance those two roles?
Sure. It is intense, I'm not going to lie, but it's also an utter privilege to do both, and it's fascinating. I could get bogged down in endless meetings and reading of documents, and there are lots of meetings and there are lots of documents. But with both roles, what I try to do and my colleagues around me, both on a Lambeth level and a London Council's level, is to get out and meet people and speak to partners and really understand what people need out there. London Councils is the body that represents the 32 London boroughs in the City of London. We come together as one collective voice. It's cross-party and we look at London-wide issues. So what I find is my work at London Councils informs my role in Lambeth and vice versa. So it's really interesting and it's really varied.
It's so good to know that, you know, that because we obviously work across a lot of those boroughs, and sometimes you're like, wow, God, you know, the experience of working in the sort of planning department of one can be so different to the experience of working in the next. So it's great that there is, you know, an organisation that has, you know, the opportunity to make sure there's a kind of coherence.
Absolutely, and also it's about learning from each other, working jointly, working more smartly. So from the operation of the Freedom Pass and travel to having big strategic vision for London and everything in between. So yes, it's great.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question? How does the relationship work between that and the GLA? I was just interested, what's the kind of connects?
We work very closely with the GLA and the Mayor of London. There's no formal codified relationship, and we have been talking about devolution and what does that look like for the future of London now that there is a national devolution conversation and agenda. How does London modernise for the next 25 years? Currently, it's done on collaboration and goodwill, which works really well. So, for example, we've just set up Warmer Homes London, which is a joint project between the Mayor of London and London boroughs, where we're pooling our resources and our expertise to try and move faster on retrofitting and how we can attract government money, how we can attract private investment, how we can work across London in order to do the essential retrofitting we need. We've also come together recently to write and draw up and co-produce the London Growth Plan, which we did with the Mayor of London and London Councils. And we had a big launch in February at Imperial College, and it was fantastic. And that is our blueprint across London governance about what does inclusive growth look like for the future. How are we going to grow London? How are we going to build the homes that we need? How are we going to get the jobs and the skills that we need? So yeah, it works really well. We just need to modernise it and codify it for the future.
And then if you sort of moving back to your your patch, Lambeth, I think Oval, you're the councillor for.
I am, the mighty Oval.
There's been a kind of big transformation in the borough in recent years with development. Do you think you've got some guiding principles or key aspects from that development that you've picked up or pushed as you've gone through?
Yeah, so before the ward boundaries were redrawn in 21 by the Boundary Commission, the Riverside in Vauxhall was in my ward. So I had a baptism of fire because we were straight into the Nine Elms Regen opportunity area, and it was designated by Boris Johnson when he was London Mayor as a tall building cluster. So I spent the first 8 years being a ward councillor in Oval, of seeing all these tall buildings go up and working with the community, with developers, with the council about how to manage that and how the community need to feel part of that growth that they see literally going up in front of their eyes. So it was a really good learning process for me to be right down as a resident and a ward councillor experiencing rapid growth in our geographical area. And what I've learnt from that is when we have developments, we really do have to involve the community, and the community is some of the loudest voices. They're important voices, but it is also the people who don't speak out and don't know how to speak out and don't have access to the same channels that others have. So that could be school children, it could be young people, it could be those furthest from the job market, and making sure that when we do developments, we're explaining what's happening all the time. We're bringing residents on that journey, and with developers, we're trying to get the best possible deal we can for our communities. And we also need to look at the public realm, because if you look at the increased number of residents in Vauxhall, and you've got Vauxhall Park and Kennington Park, that's 2 small green spaces for a lot more people. So you can do it, you just have to make sure that you constantly review what you're doing and you constantly remain in conversation.
And how do you balance that, I suppose, the identity? You know, the borough has a strong identity, and each of those communities, even like on quite a granular level, have their own sense of identity. How do you sort of manage that balance between this transformative change, but still maintaining that kind of community identity?
So we are a borough of innovators and entrepreneurs. That's our history, right? We have a history of black activism with Olive Morris. We have a history of creative arts with David Bowie. We have world-class arts institutions in the north of the borough, and we constantly innovate and transform. So I don't think this is something new to our borough.
Yeah.
We might be seeing the modern version of it, but it's something we've always done. We've always held festivals, for example, as well. If you look at Vauxhall Pleasure Gardens, there's a beautiful book that's out about it, how it used to be the place where everyone came to in London in order to get entertainment and to take a turn and to demonstrate their class, apparently, as well, because you had to pay to get in. So I think we've always had that activism and entrepreneurship. So we have that history of change, a history of innovation and transformation. And so that's not new to us. I think we're just doing it in a different way now, in a modern way. And we know that we need homes. Our local families, when the kids grow up, they can't afford to stay living near their parents. We have nearly 5,000 families living in temporary accommodation. That's a lot of families away from their networks and their communities. So the change that we now need to see in my borough and across London is homes, and affordable homes that families and young people can afford. We really want to have mixed communities because we see those as the strongest communities. So we're open to all sorts of tenures of homes, whether that's rented, shared ownership, social housing, affordable housing. And we believe that is where you get the strength in our borough. So for me, it's the identity is one that we create as we change. And if we bring communities with us and they're asking us to build homes, the majority of Londoners and the majority of people in Lambeth want new homes. And so this is the change that people want to see. So I don't think we should be afraid of it. I think we should embrace it and do it our unique Lambeth way.
So obviously, you know, for that transformative change, developers are required, you know, public-private partnership or private sector approaching Lambeth to develop. Do you have any advice for how you want developers to approach Lambeth in terms of partnership or applications?
So we're very open to partnerships. We have partnerships and joint ventures with private developers and with public bodies at the moment, whether that be at Somerleyton Road or at Westbury. or at 49 Station Road and Canterbury Crescent. And I think what we'd say is we're looking at partners who want to work with us, who understand Lambeth and understand that when we have growth, we need inclusive growth so that our community can contribute to and benefit from that growth. But we're also focusing on sectors that we're really strong at. So we have world-class art sector with all the cultural institutions at the north of the river and the Old Vic and the Young Vic, National Theatre. We also have the largest cluster of clean tech businesses in the whole of Europe in County Hall. And that's a really good example of a partnership that we have developed where we have brought our convening powers as leaders of place, and we've brought our own capital into the scheme in order to unlock the potential that Sustainable Ventures have now brought in. That is a programme and a project that we've been running with them in County Hall, which was the former seat of London Government before Margaret Thatcher abolished the GLC. And so I think it's quite fitting that we're now back there creating potential for London and potential to work sustainably. So there's a huge cluster of clean tech projects and startups that are then being so successful they're having to expand out of the building. And we were able to start that with a partnership with Sustainable Ventures by us putting in £1.5 million from our future workspace fund, and that meant that they could go out and then carry some risk around bringing companies in. And it's now a beautiful space, and if you haven't seen it, you must go and see it.
Yeah, I want to go and check it out.
Sounds really exciting. I guess as the chair of the London Councils, you see across the capital, I think recently we saw that I think about 50% of boroughs weren't getting any housing starts, I think last month. And it's a challenging environment, and it's great to see sort of pro-growth boroughs like yours who want partnerships to get homes for people that need them. You mentioned temporary housing. I was looking at a statistic recently about how much temporary housing is costing the government and everyone. And if we could
7 million a day, I think, isn't it? Just in London.
4 million.
4 million a day in London.
And if that could be converted into...
No, London.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And if that could be converted into proper homes, it would be such a better use of that capital than just, it is a kind of very difficult. So we need more homes so much. But what we would say is a lot of our developer community that we see are really struggling to get viability to work. What kind of things are you seeing out there? What's your kind of feel, the feedback you're getting about the challenges in the capital at the moment?
Yeah, I think that as local authorities and the GLA and Mayor of London and private sector, we all agree that viability is the number one issue for London. We're open to new planning reforms. We think that they're good. We support that being a better system, but that's not what is holding up house building in London. It is viability. So we're looking at ways that we can try and unlock that potential, because it is a real barrier. We are starting homes and we are beginning to see an improvement, but we're not at the level that we need to be. So, for example, we have nearly 300,000 permissions granted across London that are being really slow to start because of viability. We have some stalled sites, so we're doing work with the GLA, looking at how we can unlock those stalled sites. And I think that we have been lobbying for a long time, before the new government, for an increase in the Affordable Homes Programme grants so that we can bring more money to the table in order to bring the private money in, because we so desperately do need those homes.
So those partnerships sound like the best way to deliver is kind of in partnership. Are there any particular partnerships that you're excited about at the moment?
Yeah, well, we had a launch event today at UKREiiF for a collaboration agreement between Lambeth Council, Network Rail and Places for London. And this is really exciting because we came together after COVID with Network Rail and the local businesses, the bids and other partners to look at how we could have a new vision for Waterloo Station. It's one of the busiest stations in the country. The South Bank is an amazing place. There's huge potential in the area, but I think anyone who's come out of Waterloo Station will agree it's not exactly the most pleasant experience when you walk down the steps from Victory Arch and go over to the river. So what we're looking at is how we can partner to improve the station and to improve the opportunities in the station, but at the same time really transform the neighbourhood around it so that it works for the residents, it works for business, and it works for the millions of visitors that we get to that area, because this is the gateway to central London. Yeah. Waterloo, although I would say it's the gateway to South London, because that's the best, but it is the gateway to central London. And it's really, if you can imagine what it could be like when you walk out those that station, it would be amazing.
You get a bit lost, don't you? And in the last 20 years, you've seen such improvements in London Station. I remember as a kid, it was awful, and actually you've seen this dramatic change. But I think Waterloo, like you say, there's a great opportunity there to connect it more. I think transport infrastructure is so key in regeneration. You know, the individual schemes and architecture is important, but actually the pieces that glue them together is so key. So following on from Waterloo, there's obviously other potential infrastructure projects happening in the capital. What do you see with sort of Crossrail 2 and Bakerloo line in terms of the opportunity for unlocking further regeneration and homes ultimately?
So the 3 infrastructure projects that we're working on in London at the moment is the West London Orbital, the DLR extension to Thamesmead, and the upgrade and extension of the Bakerloo line. Mm-hmm. And these schemes, if you look at the Bakerloo line extension and upgrade, that will unlock thousands of jobs across the whole length of the line, and homes that we desperately need. Crossrail 2 has the potential to unlock across the southeast and has the potential for 200,000 new homes, which is what we desperately need. So we are working together with partners, with the Mayor, with government, to promote these infrastructure projects, to say if you invest in London, you unlock jobs, you unlock homes, and if you push growth in the capital, you push growth across the country.
No, it's very exciting.
Amazing. One final question. What would you like to give as your kind of message to the real estate and development community at UKREiiF this year?
My message to the real estate and development community is Lambeth is open for business and London boroughs are open for business. We're resolutely pro-growth. We've worked really closely with the Mayor on the development of the London Growth Plan. It's a joint London Growth Plan. We're now working on our own individual growth plans like we are in Lambeth in order to align with the London Growth Plan and the government's national growth missions. So we want to work with you, and we want you to come to the table and see the amazing infrastructure projects we have in the pipeline and how we can work together to meet our targets, to build those 1.5 million homes that the country needs, and to create really good jobs and careers for our local young people across London so that we can have a thriving London that works for all Londoners.
What a message. Thank you so much, Claire. It's been brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great.